Hello, hello. Today I want to take a little time to talk about nullable types and the best way to handle them. And in particular, I want to talk about the null coalescing operators that were introduced in C# 7 and 8. So we've got a function here called work with nullable that takes a nullable integer as its input. We know it's nullable because of this question mark here. So what that means is I could be 1 or -5 or 0, or it could be null. So you have to test for that. And a really common way to do this is to do something like this. If I is null or I equals null, they both work, we're going to do something else, we'll do something else. And so we could, for example, return I is null. And here we could say return, we'll use our little string interpolation. Value of I is I dot value. And I've got a function here in my program to test this out with 10 and with null, and let's see if it works. The value of I is 10, I is null. Okay, so that works. I prefer, however, to use the has value property. So I prefer to write this the other way. If I dot has value, and we're going to switch these around. I think this is clearer rather than using equals null or is null. So let's see if that still works. Yep, that works. So I encourage you to use has value and value when you're working with nullables. Now we can use the C# ternary operator to clean this up a little bit. We can actually do this. Return I dot has value, and there's your ternary operator. So if it does have a value, we can return that string. And if it doesn't have a value, we can return that string. So that's our three-part operator. First is the Boolean, the second is the true expression, the third is the false expression. So let's see if that works. F5. Yep, still works. Lovely. So make sure you understand that, right? We're checking for the value. Here's what happens if this is true, and here's what we get if that's false. So let's say, though, we wanted to force I to have a value. In other words, if it was null, we wanted to do something different. So I'm going to change this up a little bit. So we want to make sure that I has a value at this point in time. So one thing we could do is we could say if not I dot has value, then I equals 1. So that gives it a default value. Let's make sure that works. 10 and 1, it works. And this is where the null coalescing operator comes into play. And this was introduced in C# 7. So rather than doing this check up here, we can kind of do it in line right here using the double question mark null coalescing operator. So what this is going to do is it's going to evaluate the left-hand side. And if the left-hand side has a value, you'll just get the value. If the left-hand side is null, you're going to get the right-hand side. So that's what that double question mark null coalescing operator does. Let's test it out. Beauty. That works really nicely. Now in C# 8, there's another variation here, which is the null coalescing assignment operator. And the way that works is you would say I question mark equals 1. And this is very much equivalent to that prior if statement. It basically means if I is null, give me this default. Otherwise, just give me I. And then here, we can literally just turn that into I. And this should work. And it does. So now you've got a few options for dealing with nulls. You can use the has value test and value to get the value, or you can use these two newer handy null coalescing operators to make sure that your nullable has a value. All right, null coalescing operators for the win.